And please pronounce your name for me because I want you to say it.
Absolutely. It's Foluke.
Foluke.
Yes.
Okay, I was not going to say it like that at all. Oh, my goodness. I hate getting people's name wrong, especially Black women, because people act like our name is so hard, and I'm like, it's just ass, okay?
Absolutely. If you can pronounce Beethoven, you can pronounce Foluke.
Okay. That's what I feel like, too. All right, so hey, if they don't jump on, that's on them. But let's get started for the C-Suite Roundtable Deliberation number 2. And welcome to the C-Suite Roundtable Deliberation. It is with great respect and honor that you have decided to be present today. You are experts and professionals in your own right and industry, and I am pleased to have your assistance in my preparation for Miss Tennessee and Miss America. If you received an email invite, you are aware that this discussion will be aired on Vision and Vibes podcast. So say hey to everybody in Vision and Vibes land. A podcast produced by me. This podcast exists so that we can better understand economics, creativity, purpose, and self-care more clearly. For those who may not be aware of who I am, my mission or reputation, please allow me to introduce myself. I am Kay Johnson, speaker, leader, and visionary of Inspire Bosses, established in 2020. My vision is to see 1 million rise of the present generations in confidence. As a Miss Tennessee candidate, number 15, the goal of today is to highlight perspectives and issues around my social impact initiative, Self-Care Revolution, Workplace Mental and Emotional Wellness. Our goal today is to uncover, inform, and share pressing issues that we as Tennesseans and Americans are experiencing on a daily basis as business owners, workers, and leaders of communities. The flow of our deliberation will be the topic, stats and facts, my personal stance, generational stats, questions and current news, and closing remarks. Now I want to introduce our participants, our experts for today. First, we have Foluke Houston, CEO, and Raymond Wright, also CEO, Right Way. But I want you all to give a brief description of who you are, the company you work for, the company you own, your mission, and just a little bit background about who you are for the people who don't know you.
Okay, I can kick us off since we can go across the screen. Good morning, everybody. My name is Foluke Houston Gaddis, and I'm the CEO of P3 Human Capital Solutions located out of Germantown, Tennessee. P3 is a diversity and woman-owned consulting firm where we provide strategic human capital solutions for individuals and organizations, connecting people with power and purpose, hence the P3. I'm a firm believer that if you are working and operating in your purpose, that you will find your passion and you will be your best self. And that, to me, needs to be the environment, whether or not you are working for yourself as an individual, or if you're part of an organization or an organizational leader and decision maker. When we empower our employees to be involved in the engagement in the workplace, and we have strategic solutions available where they are a part of high-performing and inclusive teams, you have a competitive edge. And so my firm works to empower individuals to be a part of those teams through services such as resume writing, career development, working with them through salary negotiations and things of that nature, but also with organizations, providing different types of program assessments, development, and training facilitations. And I'm really excited to be here today to talk about self-care within the workplace. So thank you so much for having me.
Yay!
That was money. I got to go behind that.
You got it. Go ahead.
My apologies for being a few minutes late. I am sweating. I just finished a 6-mile run. Why? I don't know why. You ever woke up and you're like, man, I got to get my body moving. So here I am. But good morning, everybody. My name is Raymond Wright. I am the CEO and founder of Right Way Leadership Transformational Coaching. You know, and I like to say I'm constantly evolving with the times. You know, I love to serve people. I believe my greatest superpower is to help people identify the hero inside of them. Mental health right now, as we all know, is a catalyst to, I believe, self-awareness. And I believe that my goal through my coaching and through really trying to teach people, leadership starts with self-reflection, self-awareness, and the ability to really show up as your best self in the middle of chaos and confusion. So I really try to work people identify the things that they want, the things that they really, you know, have dreamed of, the imagination. I really try to get people to really develop the imagination that we were taught as kids to have, but we tend to lose as the world gets crazy around us and our responsibilities increase. I just want people to understand that the best is yet to come if they make a decision in their life to really take back control of their physical abilities, their mindset, and their spirituality.
You guys are on fire. Oh my goodness. And we just had Dr. Terrell Carpenter hop on as well. And Dr. Terrell, we are now introducing each other. Well, you guys are introducing yourselves, a brief description of who you are, why you're here, your mission, your background, and then we're going to move into the conversation. Let me take you off mute, okay? Or you may have to unmute yourself.
Is that better? Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Good morning. I am Dr. Terrell Carpenter.
Did we lose her?
I think so. She froze up. Okay. You froze up. And now we can't hear you, but your mic is not muted.
She might have to go out and come back in.
No, can't hear you.
Try to log out and then log back in. Sometimes it resets. I don't know why.
Can you hear us? You can hear me? No, we can't hear you. I'm gonna it says kick you out, but I'm not kicking you out, but I'm gonna help you leave and then you just come back, okay? All right, let's see if she can get back on. Okay, well, when she comes back, we'll let her introduce herself, but we're gonna go ahead and move through the conversation. I might have maybe another person joining after her. But Coach Wright, your introduction about what you do and Foluke, like y'all both, this is a great segue. I think this is gonna be a great conversation today. I want us to kind of relax. I don't want us to be all super professional, even though we are professional. I want us to have fun. I want us to laugh. I want us to smile. But I also want us to inform the people of these different experiences we have, our expertise, so that we can have a better conversation about how to make strategies actually work in Tennessee and America. So I'll first start off with, according to CASEL, SEL is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals. Feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. Companies that are changing the game today, one of my favorite is Spotify. Spotify has a wellness week, offers a wellness week to their employees, which is a week off to focus on their health and well-being. One of the most radical companies that are focusing on wellness and well-being is WeWork. WeWork offers wellness programs like yoga and sound baths, as well as unlimited sick days and annual retreats. Microsoft also offers an annual $800 Stay Fit reimbursement program to cover the cost of gym memberships and fitness programs. I'll continue to go through some more companies that are changing the game when it comes to health, social, emotional learning, and as well workplace, mental and emotional wellness. Let me see if Dr. Terrell is back. She's not back yet. We'll see if she gets back on. Okay. So next, I want to share my stance with you as a Miss Tennessee candidate and as a owner of Inspired Bosses and just a person that lives in purpose. I believe America needs to invest more into self-care benefits, starting with educational standards and curriculum with work life and business in mind. This includes less extended work hours, self-care PTO days, wellness day breaks, multiple hires for a certain role, I think they need to renew performance evaluation metrics, increase wages, include rest, nutrition, and sleep, access to on-site work-related therapists and masseuse, on-site work playgrounds, hybrid remote work opportunities, and in the school system, introduce more social emotional learning in their curriculum and as requirements. Now I'm gonna let you all take that in because I said a lot. I said a lot about different companies and I said a lot about my personal stance. Now that you've taken that in, I just want to open the floor on some of your thoughts. If you have questions, if you have any responses to the information I just shared with you.
I was trying to find the unmute button. So I think that what you shared, Kay, brought up a really good point about what's happening in what I like to call the world of work. Wellness and well-being, I think, has been on the radar for a long time now, but I am very sure that the pandemic put batteries in a lot of companies' backs in terms of bringing these things into fruition to benefit their employees. Even, I don't like to say post-pandemic, but let's say post-quarantine period. We're still seeing companies make important and really evolving important changes to their benefit packages, but also just to their day-to-day operations in order to benefit their employees more. If you look back maybe 5 years ago, we were still in that mode of you have to be in the office to do the work. You have to work really hard in order to be seen and promoted. You know, you work those long hours, those weekends, you have full availability. You know, you're off on the weekends, but be available. You know, all those different mantras that the workforce before us really took to mind and thought made you a really resilient and valuable employee. Those things are changing. And so a lot of companies like Spotify and the others that you mentioned have seen the benefit and are seeing the benefit of listening to what their employees need in terms of self-care and wellness, and then implementing those things. I think we're going to continue to see this evolve. I know there's been even some talk about seeing a 4-day work week to help lessen burnout, because burnout is real. And so I think you're going to continue to have this pendulum, right? You're going to have companies that, you know, take the charge and make these changes to benefit their employees. And then you're going to have some who are kind of in the middle and they're trying to figure out what works best for the business. You know, how can we keep our competitive edge, but also benefit the people that make it happen? And then you're going to have those that lag a little bit, and it may be a little reactionary, but I think we're going to get there. It's going to take some time, but I'm very inspired and optimistic to see some of the changes that have been happening in the workforce as it relates to wellness, even here in Tennessee.
You might want to message the doctor and tell her she can try to log back in. Maybe she's waiting for something. I just was thinking about that. Yeah, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 7 years, and you've seen consistent upgrades on the relationship between the employees. When it comes to health and the wellness and you know, being able to have some time, being able to have some resources. They would have these events where groups of people, they would do like a month, and they would gather in groups. See, I don't know but it would be like how many miles you do, which group does the most miles. So people would gather up in groups, you know, and go for walks at lunchtime, you know, and really try to implement that, because I think people are starting to understand how important the health aspect is. I think people are starting to understand, like the company that I just left. They every Wednesday they did a meditation for an hour at 12 to 1. And then they also did like a yoga session. So, you know, things like that. It's not for everybody, but they allow these things because I think, you know, for me, meditation for a long time was like a really weird thing. Like in my mind, you know, as a man growing up, you know, the way that I grew up. But when I started to understand how important really getting into self and really slowing things down. And I think that's like the work balance. Now I come from a construction background. I could tell you right now, they're not implementing any of this into the construction field. You know, construction field is a little bit different. The blue collar workers, you know, it's about you get there at 5 a.m, you work your butt off, you get your lunch break, and you go home at 2:30. Now there are benefits on the back end when it comes to health insurance and some vacation time as you start to climb. But in the corporate settings, I think with me is it's you have to make it appealing to the people, right? Like, because I see so many times where no matter what you give, no matter what you offer, people are not enjoying their jobs. And I think it's this unfulfilling feeling. And I truly believe, and listen, I've never been like, I'm a dreamer, I'm a goal setter, and I started to learn that I couldn't get the life and serve the people and help the people at a 9 to 5. Right. So that's why I didn't know it, because everybody told me just be happy with what you got. People have it worse than you. And it wasn't, you know, I mean, I was making 6 figures, but I still felt unfulfilled. So I think as managers, as leaders in companies, I think they need more training than the employees to understand how to relate and be able to really conversate and understand the employees, because we're all from different backgrounds. We're all from different upbringings. We all dealing with different mental health issues, especially in the world we are right now. So I think managers have to stop separating themselves so much, and the companies need to focus on really helping those that are in position to help and really understand where their people are coming from. And on the hiring aspect of it, I really would like to see more companies stop hiring because the person has a certificate and start hiring based on qualifications of the person's ability, desire, and willingness with the company's mission. Like you have so many employees that work for companies that their missions are so unaligned, you're never going to make them happy. Right. So I think we really need to start hiring based upon whether they can be aligned with the mission of the company, if that makes sense. That's just what I see and what I feel. And as you know, I'm a talker. So I talk to everybody in every department, managers, like I'm just a talker. So, and these are the things that I pick up on. And that's the things that I really would like to see companies focus on, is really helping their managers, because their managers and supervisors are technically supposed to be leaders.
Right.
But leadership isn't a title. You know what I mean? Leadership is about serving those that work for you and helping them get where they want to go.
I think Raymond just hit on a very important point. And I think one of the most important ways that you do that is what I like to call self-centered or centered leadership, where you're not leading from the front, but you're in the middle of everything that is going on, so you can hear and engage with your employees in a lot of different valuable ways. And we cannot know, we cannot understand, we cannot implement these things that are important. These programs and plans are important to our employees unless we get them involved from the beginning, in terms of asking them and identifying, what do you need in order to bring your best self into this door every day? and then making our plans, creating our mission, and all of our different workplace initiatives around that input. I think taking that approach allows for your employees to be happy, which definitely enhances their wellness. But it's also critical for business results. When our employees are allowed and they feel empowered and they're happy and they want to come through those doors, you can see the actual benefits of that in your bottom line. You can see it in engagement. You can see it in all those critical workplace metrics and points that are measurable, qualitative and quantitative, right? And so I think that should really be at the front of mind of a lot of our business leaders in terms of this is not just the right thing to do from a business standpoint, but it is also the right thing to do for our employees, period.
Wow. I mean, it's like you almost both just read my essay from Miss Tennessee. Because I talk about how when we are better prepared mentally, emotionally, and there's a focus on that from a business manager, business CEO, business CFO perspective, then our productivity does not fail. It improves, it gets better, it's 10 times better. That's why I said something about companies reevaluating their performance evaluation metrics, because we're using old standards and it's like that doesn't work for a 21st century people. It just doesn't. I mean, people grieve. We have loss of friendships, we have loss of jobs, we have loss of an idea, a business idea, we have loss of people that we love. They actually are deceased. We have to put them in the ground. And what 2020 did for us was allowed us to see how it feels to not be able to put someone in the ground properly. But it also showed us that we are able to take a moment to also reconnect with our family, reconnect with our purposes, which was something that I was able to do as a graduate at the end of 2019 from college. Just imagine, graduating and then all of a sudden you're in this chaos while trying to transition from syllabus to work life. And I became an author in 2021, and I wrote about these specific things like self-awareness and self-compassion. And when I think about some of the things that you guys are saying, one of the things that I want to see is more imagination, right? Like the worksite playground. We have recess when we are children, and it's necessary to go outside. And yes, that's a break for the teachers, because the teachers need it as well, but the students need that time as too. And so one of the things that I've been focusing on when I go into schools, and I'm kind of shifting the conversation here a little bit, because is that feeling of empowerment to be able to focus on your mental and emotional well-being. I won't go spiritual side because that's a little bit more family oriented. If you want to have that, everybody doesn't want that. But when I think about self-care, I think about your finances, your mental stability, your emotional stability, your spiritual stability, the environment that surrounds you, your career. And just truthfully, in America, we are trained from pre-K all the way to 12th grade to be an employee. We're trained to walk on the side of this hallway on the blue line, and we're also trained to drive on this side of the highway when it's time to get your driver's license. And we're also trained to switch classes. We're trained to listen to one person who is over this room. We're trained to abide by guidelines and policies in a uniform nowadays in private schools and in public schools. We're trained to even report to certain levels of hierarchy. You don't get in trouble and go straight to the principal. You first have a certain level of warnings when you used to pull a card when you were in elementary school. So, and that's still how our work society operates. And so for me, it's like we have to start at the ground levels with the curriculum. We have to start there because it's still, it doesn't matter if you're an adult. Some people still don't know how to deal with their emotions. Some people still have perceptions that are negative that contribute to them not being a mission-focused person with this business. And so with that being said, I want to share some more statistics about the Great Resignation. So COVID-19, there was a new trend that emerged in the U.S. labor market. And throughout 2021, millions of Americans, which was still the pandemic, millions of Americans voluntarily left their jobs. About 4.53 million Americans quit their jobs. Okay, 4.53 Americans quit their jobs. And some of the top complaints we have as HR complaints is when to file an HR complaint, when you're being harassed at work, when you're facing discrimination, microaggression, company rights being violated, benefits are being withheld, the boss is abusive mentally, emotionally. The other things that people complain about as employees are lack of communication. I like when you said, Coach Wright, about the managers needing, or the supervisors needing to be a little bit more grounded in their communication, in their operation with those people who are on the lower level. And I put air quotes because, when you looked at it as a lower level, you kind of separate yourself. They also talked about no job security, the underappreciation, favoritism, being overworked, contributing to that burnout that you talked about, CEO Foluke. So these are all of the things, even micromanagement, these are all of the things that contribute to a society that feels unheard, that feels a lack of purpose, feels a void in their work. And you might like the work that you do, but if you're never appreciated for it, whether that be, hey, take a day off, just choose a day out of this year that you want to take off because you've done the work. And I think too, I've heard a lot of people say that they've been able to get more work done at home, being able to work from home and seeing their productivity increase because they don't have so many other things to worry about. You eliminate risk of travel. You eliminate a lot of different risks versus, I mean, there are technical risks, but we can get over a technology risk. You know, we can understand that, okay, tech isn't working today, so maybe you have to double up tomorrow, whatever the case may be, or maybe you have to work through the night, but it's a more flexible environment. And so with the Great Resignation and 4.53 million Americans leaving their jobs, I don't think it's a better time than now to incorporate more social, emotional skill building, more mental, emotional focus.
No, I think you made a lot of valid points in what you just shared, Kay. One thing I will say that you touched on, when we talk about the Great Resignation, I just want you to take one thing into consideration. I think that number that you shared was for 1 month. That was for 1 month. In 2021, 47.8 million people left their job voluntarily. That's mind-blowing. 47.8 million people in 1 year left their job for various reasons. And I think it was a culmination of different reasons, right? And you touched on a lot of those. But I think some of them consist of just making better choices in terms of what matters most to me, and if my organization is aligned with what matters most to me. And you're going to continue to see that happen as the workforce gets younger, because millennials and the generations that follow are really focused on impact and also their well-being. And organizations are going to have to really make a choice whether or not they're going to align some of their strategies and services and plans with what's important to the workforce that's here and that's coming. And that's just inevitable. Now, the other thing that you touched on that I really want to talk about real briefly is what happened during the pandemic. I'm one of those people that was a part of the Great Resignation. I made a decision. I was like, you know what? But I will tell you this. What I did see before I left my last organization was the pandemic really encouraged leaders to be more empathetic than before. You know, I don't know about y'all, but before the pandemic, people were a little hesitant, including myself, to talk about how they felt. It was all about business results. And then once we got into the thick of things, we would hear more conversations about, you know what, I'm tired. I am mentally drained. Working from home for a lot of us gave us an opportunity to have that time to relax a little bit more, have a little bit more flexibility. If I wanted to log off and go to yoga on my lunch break, I had that opportunity without having to worry about what's going to happen to the work, because the work is going to get done, right? And so I think it started creating a culture of flexibility, a culture of empathy that was much needed in a lot of different organizations. So even though the pandemic really has been a catastrophic period of time for us across the world, I think if there is a silver lining, it really has exposed a lot of those gray areas and gaps within the way we do business. But on the other hand, it has empowered a lot of our workforce to say, you know what, I'm going to choose what's best for me. And that may be staying at this organization, and it may not. But I'm going to make the choice to do what's best for me regardless.
Okay. So now let's move this conversation to more of a question and perspective response type of thing. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I also want to pull out I don't want this conversation to be all agreeable, right? Like, I want us to kind of point out some roadblocks, some challenges, some things that might not work to kind of get our minds rolling. I know CEO Foluke, you have a experience in HR. Am I correct? Okay. Yes. So just bringing some of those perspectives and experience that you all have in your past organizations, past industries, some things that are not gonna just mesh all the way. I want some of that, but I also want to hear some of the challenges. And so I'm gonna start with some questions. And we did have Kaylin Williams hop on. She's a marketing advertising guru. And if Kay, you wanna, before we get into the questions, I know you've been listening a little bit. If you want to introduce yourself to Vision and Vibes and to our guest that we have on today, please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello, good morning, everyone. It's Kaylin. I'm glad to finally have joined you guys and join the conversation. So I'm ready to jump in. I am the owner of All Eyes on You Branding. We are a full service marketing agency, and we primarily serve health and beauty business owners. We focus in on our minority business owners, which will be our young people and our people of color, as well as our women. So I'm excited to talk more about some of the strategies that we help our clients with in regards to workflow, hiring, outsourcing, training, all of that good stuff. So nice to meet you guys and ladies.
Nice to meet you too.
Awesome. So obviously we have some really dope people online today. So let's get into these questions, you all. So right now, if you could think about your industry, whether that be the business that you're running or the industry you may just have left, or maybe you're doing something on the side, could you tell me what are some major pain points for you right now or for your industry, or that you're hearing from other people right now when it comes to like workplace mental and emotional wellness?
Well, I mean, like, I could write a book. Like, I could do I could do a whole talk right now.
Yes.
So I think, there's so many differences we all have. There's so many beliefs that we all have. There's so many ideas that we all have. And, it's funny because I don't really engage in confrontations on social media at all. But for the last 18 hours, I've been engaging in a specific conversation because it's been about a political conversation. And I'm not a very political person, right? I think I'm to the point in my life, and I see this in the workplace, and I see this and it's great for people to have their own ideas and their own opinions. It's really hard when people they're brought up. You mentioned the way people are brought up, right? It's in the environment K through 12, but it even goes K through death. Like Benjamin Franklin says, people die at 25 and wait to 75 to be buried. And it's because we are brought up in the ideas of others, whether if it's our family, whether if it's the environment we grow up in. You know, the environment I grew up in, I shouldn't even be where I'm at right now. I mean, no way back then would you invite me to be on camera and speak. So I think when I look at it is I'm trying to tell people you're it's hard to argue that you're empathetic and you're for people when you only see it from one lens view. Like for me, like I don't attach the R's and the D's and the this and the that. I attach the humbleness, the humility, the ability to understand where you're coming from without you telling me how I should think. And in the workplace, and this is one thing that I see in the corporate environment now, again, I'm multiple pharmaceuticals. Everybody walks around with one idea. I have my job to do, and that's the only thing I'm supposed to do. They don't feel important. They don't feel like they're being heard. I am a coach. I ask questions. I see pain in people. I see issues in people's faces. They're not happy. So I speak to all of them. I speak now. I was in facilities. I was facilities engineer. So I'm talking to people who are scientists. I'm talking to people who are just lab helpers. I'm talking to the janitors. I'm talking to the cleaners. Like I'm talking to people. And when you actually start to hear from these people, they're not happy. They're not happy with the way they're being treated. They're not happy with the money. I mean, there are some people I was meeting that are working 3 jobs still 3 jobs. They're not spending time with their family. They feel like their body's getting older. They don't. So the trouble I see is no matter how good we make a company, no matter how profitable we are, if we're not humbling ourselves to communicate with those that we work with and know what's going on in their lives, right? Then it's really hard, no matter where you're at in life, to excel as far as you want to go. And when I'm talking to these people at work, I'm understanding like they do not like their job. And now we're talking about majority people that went and spent tens of thousands of dollars to go to school to get a degree to work for a company. And now they realize it's not. And is it the job? I don't know. I think, again, it goes back to the fulfillment. They only feel like they're a tool. Right. And if you only feel like you're a tool, if you only feel like you're their profit, rather than part of their mission, I just think it's so hard. So I think the biggest stumbling block is I take it back to the original part is how do we educate the leaders to actually be able to be vulnerable and have a conversation with somebody, a serious conversation, and get to understand where they're coming from, to get to understand, like, hey man, what made you get into this trade? What made you get into this career? Like, I don't even hear so I've been like, I'm 42, right? I know I look like I'm 25, but I always got to throw that in. So, but one thing, I've been in construction, right? I worked in construction from 20 to 35. And I had a specific way of thinking. I was very angry. I was very aggressive. I had depression. I had all these things. From 35 to 42, I had a transformation in my life, right? I started to read. I started to listen. I started to educate. I started to get around like-minded people. I started to hear different opinions and different ideas. And it made me understand how important it was that people just want to be heard. Like they just want to be heard. And for some reason, I think there's this building block, that there's this barrier where for some reason companies think I don't know if it's I don't know what goes on, of course, in the upper level when they get in their meetings about how to get people more involved. I just think that people feel like they're not cared for when it really boils down to it. And there's an old saying, and it says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right. And it's, and I see that in, feedback. So, and I would see like the manager would tell my supervisor something, like it was like, he had authority, but he wanted everybody to know his position, and that like it was the chain of command thing sometimes isn't very successful because people are not feeling like they're being heard.
So Raymond, as you're talking, I'm just like, oh, okay. Because being in the HR space for about almost 20 years now, you're absolutely right. I think the key word in what you were just describing was culture. So a lot of organizations, you hear this word, right? Culture has become a buzzword really now in the last 10 years. And a lot of some organizations have been living, working off this archaic, I'll just say it, archaic culture that worked for grandma, granddaddy, mom and dad, but it's not working for this current generation. And honestly, if mom and dad and grandpa and grandma were honest too, they would say it didn't work for them. But the mindset of the different generations has definitely shifted, right? I know I'm one of those people where if the culture is toxic, I gotta go. Because if I'm not seeing that the company is trying to implement change and really make it in a more evolving and more productive environment, then that's not good for me. I think Raymond spoke to that earlier about that alignment, right? And so a lot of organizations need to do a culture check. Culture is not pizza when something happens in the office. Culture is not wearing uniforms every week because we all want to feel like we're a family. Culture is not having the CEO talk to you perched from his penthouse office. Culture is, just like Raymond said, getting out of the glass door, getting out of the glass office and seeing things and engaging with your employees through their lenses. That is the only way that your company is going to be sustained and have a positive work culture. You have to talk to your people. You have to engage with your people. I think if we all think about the worst leadership and culture that we worked in, some of those things I just described are a part of that. If we think about some of the best leadership that we experienced in cultures that we worked in, it's some of those other characteristics I talked about. The manager and leaders were engaged. They got out and talked to the people, and they actually implemented and made sure that the things that the employees shared with them was important to them were actually put into action. And it's not a guarantee that everything your employees want and desire can be done, right? We have to have positive business results. But there has to be this, it's an art, right? It's not a science. There has to be this dance where everybody is in sync, where employees feel like, you know what? I know that if Raymond is my leader, that he's going to hear me out and I'm going to see some changes and not just hear him talk, right? And then the leaders are going to understand that I want to hear and understand what makes my employees happy. I'm going to do to the best of my abilities. To the best of my abilities, I'm going to make it happen.
I'll speak to that just a little bit as well. I think the biggest thing that I've been hearing is burnout, and that's going to be from the employee burnout, but more specifically what I deal with the most is what I like to call small business burnout. And with small business burnout, we see business owners that don't have the resources they need to achieve the goals that they have in mind. They don't have maybe the funds to outsource to the people that they need to hire. So I see a lot of business owners trying to do their own marketing, do their own social media management, as well as do their craft, whether it be writing a book, coming up with a skincare product that is just too much to manage. And ultimately one end suffers. Either we see the product, the quality of the product and the service diminish and your marketing is great, or we see that your marketing isn't consistent, but you have a really strong offering. And then on the employee burnout side, it's kind of like collateral damage from the small business burnout, because the employees are being burnt out due to being limited resources as well. So when we talk about things like the managers not being able to have the necessary communication skills to engage with employees. Well, that's because we have a lack of training to teach them values trainings, to teach them microaggressions, to teach them how to communicate with a younger employee group. So a lot of our C-suite executives are 45 plus, and a lot of our employees are 19 or 20, 21 coming out of college. So there's an age barrier. There's often a culture barrier when we think about ethnicity. We see a lot of companies are trying to hire more diverse groups of people, and that's great. But how do you understand the mental health of someone coming from an environment that you have never been exposed to? So when we have lack of resources, we have burnout on both ends.
Girl, you better preach. I think that'll teach a lot of people right there. So, okay, this next question is for you, and then you guys, I'm gonna read an article, and I'm gonna give us a time. It's 10:51, and y'all know I like to honor time. So we're gonna start to wrap this up, and if you guys have questions for me, please feel free to ask me. But Kay, if you could just, and if you guys have a response to this as well that is brief, I encourage that you answer this as well. So I'm going to ask a series of 3 questions. The first one will be for Kay, and then the other 2 for you all, and then we'll just briefly answer, okay? So the first question is Kay, if you could change 1 to 2 things that frustrate you the most in your industry or for the people that you are working for, what would that be? I'll give you time to think about that. The next question is why are these changes needed? And if you feel compelled, either one of you, Coach Wright or CEO Foluke, that question can be for you. And then the next one is, how can you or we make these changes?
I think that the change that little feedback. The change that frustrates me the most is the trend of DE&I. I know that every company now wants to have some type of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative going on. And me doing advertising and marketing, public relations, I'm often the spearhead for a lot of those projects, as well as me being female and African American and young. We often want to be the leaders to those initiatives, or we're often tapped to be the leaders of those initiatives because we are the voice of the group, right? And so we see that this is it's becoming a trend, and it's becoming also like a requirement instead of something that is authentic. So what I'm noticing and what I'm getting frustrated with is that companies want to, let's do a Black History Month thing, but you're not really doing anything in the community to actually help this community be more developed. You're just doing an Instagram post about Black history, and that's not really being inclusive. Yes, you're hiring more Black people, you're hiring more young people, but you don't know how to communicate with them. So that's the thing that's frustrating me the most. I want to see more authentic diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. An example of that could be at my agency, once a month, we do a values training. And with the values training, we talk about different things that are like tough topics, like microaggressions, like being scared to ask questions at work, being scared to be creative during the brainstorming process because you are nervous about what other people will think that you'll say. And so things like that really break culture barriers between employees, and it ultimately helps us just focus on the work and everybody bringing their unique experiences to make this something that everybody can connect to authentically.
That's powerful. And don't forget Juneteenth, child, because it's
coming.
got some stuff out there that's kind of like, huh?
Oh yeah, it's more than a hashtag and a t-shirt.
Come on, everybody. All right.
Kay, you're speaking to my heart. That performative versus actionable activism is very It's very much so something that organizations and us as individuals need to take in consideration. I remember a while back, everybody was changing their social pics to black circles. But outside of that, what was being done to really show allyship, true and authentic allyship? And so to your point, Kay, that's one of the things that my company, one of the services my company offers. We do organizational assessments from a diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging standpoint. So we can really assess what are the needs of the employees and what are you doing in order to really promote and foster inclusive work environments. So are you just using hashtags? Are you just changing your logo to the rainbow colors? Or are you looking at the way that you communicate to job seekers to make sure that your language is inclusive? Are you making sure that your Black employees feel empowered and that they have the resources that they need to be promotable and to retain them? So really just moving away from what can we do performative measures to what can we do to really enhance and foster inclusive workspaces. So I love that.
And I think that you just answered on top of Kaylin answering that was how can we make these changes? And I like that, really going into this company and doing that organizational assessment. And let's go from having conversations that scare us to having conversations that welcome our creativity, our experience, our background, even if it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Even if it is.
Yeah.
So, Coach Wright, you want to chime in, and then I'm going to read the article, and then we're going to close out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see it just in the community that I live in. You know, it's anytime you force something, like anything that's forced isn't going to last. Anything that has no authenticity behind it isn't going to last. Like, you can do everything you want to do short term, but that's the problem is companies and individuals, they're looking for this instant gratification. I support you. I like support by putting a picture up. Now, in my community, I coached youth sports for a long time. These children that come on my team, they are my children on my field. I protect them. I love them. I encourage them. When I see them outside, they're still my children, right? The problem I see is that, and again, I'll take it back to my personal, right? I can't speak outside of my personal experience. During the election, I was out in the community, out in the areas, speaking for people that I put my trust and faith behind, because not of the position or not because of their character, their integrity, what they say they stand for. Then the problem I see is they get into a position and they forget about what they stood for, right? And it's very frustrating to me, because the barrier is how do we continue to be what we say we're going to be when we know it's going to bother those that are in a position of authority? And that's where I say I tear down those barriers. I don't care I don't care what position you're in. I care about results. How are we truly serving people? How are we truly being authentic and inviting people who fit the criteria, and then help them and mold them into what they say they want to be, not what we want them to be, right? And I see it so much. And until we can, this is the thing. Too many companies, right? They're trying to force things. And it's when you think about it, it's the right thing to do. We want more diversity. We want more people. We want more ideas. I mean, you know, there are people that are 16 years old that I mentored a young man in Africa. He's still in Africa. And I started mentoring him about 4 years ago. He reached out to me on social media and he said, "Will you mentor me?" And I asked him, I've never really mentored somebody from Africa before. And I said, "What do you want?" He says, "I want to be successful." I said, "Are you coachable?" This young man has started his own company. He went from making his own orange juice in little bottles to buying a machine to buy more bottles. Now he's doing marketing, right, in Africa. And he threw an event. He had me come speak at an event on a Zoom. And you just see, we have to empower people to be them, not what we want them to be. And in most corporations, like I would love, like, hire somebody, like Kaylin was saying, hire somebody or bring somebody in who's willing to spend the time to get to know people.
Thanks, Kay. We'll see you soon. But oh my goodness, so many thoughts came to my mind about this conversation that you all are having, and I want to pull out the problems and like why this is needed. I believe just from hearing you, there are language barriers. And not just a language barrier, but an honest communication barrier. It's a lack of acceptance of what is true and honest for some people when it comes to their challenges mentally, emotionally. And I think that we still have a lot of way to go, for lack of a better term, for lack of a better phrase, a lot of way to go. So what I will do with my initiative, I won't lose sight. And it's one of those things that people say to me, don't forget about us when you get big. I'm like, well, the first thing is, are you contributing large enough, or are you contributing consistently enough? Are you contributing at all? First of all, for me not to forget you. That's number one for me. But I don't look at you as a small person. And I think when I converge, when I collide with people, when it comes to my purpose, I'm a people person. Like, I don't really forget much. And although I've had a lot of head trauma, I don't really forget much. So it's a little bit of like, to me, it's uncomfortable when I hear people say that, but I get it. But I also want to say that I don't even have to read the article, because when I think about SEL, there's this conversation that SEL, social emotional learning, is not enough when it comes to curriculum for students. But they also say, how is it different from character education, right? And character education, I'm learning, is just more about telling you what to think and telling you that you need to be respectful, grateful, honest, and empathetic, versus social emotional learning. SEL is more about sharing and understanding why you think this way and why you say the things that you do, and understanding how to be aware of yourself, your emotions, and other people. And there is a lack of that, not only in the schools, with students. Oh my goodness, I've heard educators just say this over and over, and me being in schools as well. I see that when these school students enter back into the classroom, they are more rude, more ruthless, and don't care about authority than ever. Not as like specifically speaking to certain kids, like I can't say that for every child, but as a whole, our teachers are leaving the education industry because it's just too much. They have to meet standardized test standards. They have to be able to teach. They have to also be able to manage their classroom, and they have to also be a teacher that just deals with every different level of student. And it's super hard to do that, especially when you don't get paid like your surgeon, when I think that they should, because they are the ones that are developing the next generation policymakers, all of these things. And it's just a lack of appreciation for teachers. And you see that in the education industry from my hometown. It is terrible. I look at it and say, what has happened from the school that I used to go to, that I was so proud of, that I'm still proud of, but like, what has been the breakdown? Have people been stealing money? Like, what is going on? But these students are not nurtured. And because they're not nurtured, they respond, they look into their toolbox, and all of the things that they have to pull out is just anger and bullying and being nasty and mean to other students, to themselves, to the teachers. And it's just crazy. And so one of the things that this article does say about SEL, it says that these people, they're saying that it's a lack of trust about the schools indoctrinating people. They're saying, okay, if we say we're going to teach interpersonal skills, saying we're teaching resiliency, they say absolutely, they agree with it. But if you're saying that you're going to teach SEL, they think, what are you doing to our students? They're like, that's not okay. They think that we're pushing this, I guess, critical race theory type of deal. They're saying that social emotional learning is a vehicle for critical race theory, an effort to divide students from their parents, and emotional manipulation. And then they say things like it it doesn't help the students protect their privacy and all these different things. But I also know that once we solve one problem with a solution, we know that there are other problems that come from it. I mean, we create businesses to give people jobs, but then they're frustrated because managers don't listen to them. People abuse their power. We create an invention, but we know that even with Apple, they created the iPhone, but the problem with it is breaks easily. So now you need the glass protector. It's another problem, but another solution. So even with all these problems and all these solutions that we have, I think that it's still a good idea to bring SEL into the mix. And so with that, now we're ready for closing remarks. I think it's time to go. Somebody just rang my doorbell. It's 11:05, and I don't want to hold you any more longer. But if you have any closing remarks or any responses, please feel free to say them now.
I'll just, as I hear you talking, and I think it really boils down to this. I think our children are being taught what to think rather than how to think. And there has to be, I think sometimes we hurt kids because there are kids that are so specifically good in an area and we hold them back rather than having somewhere to put them to really be able to flourish their specific gifts and talents, because we don't want to hurt the other kids. And I think that's not particularly life. I think if somebody shows specific things, we should really push an effort to try to get them to an area of their life where they can excel beyond the classroom. I don't know what kind of program that is. I think about this sometimes, like entrepreneurial programs, whether it's a portion of the school day or something like that. I think, and I think we also have to understand in schools that, again, we're dealing with so much a wide variety of people whose upbringings, their parents were raised a specific way. They try to raise their children a specific way. And I think we have to really, again, go back. The teachers need to be taught how to have empathy, how to understand that all kids are different. Not one child is the same. And, it's so hard when dealing with kids because especially at the ages, the middle school to high school, they're so emotional. And I would just like to see more emphasis on really, teaching their ultimate, what do they want? Find out what they want and then implement a program that's basically whatever the education is built, a program specifically for the individual, why it pertains to the curriculum, if that makes sense. There's a way to do it. Now, I'm not educated enough to do it, but I know it can be done.
So, Kay, I would close out with this. And first of all, I want to thank you for definitely putting this together. I think about as we close out this month, which is Mental Health Awareness Month anyway, that this is a really relevant and great topic for us to be speaking on. But I think for me, just one thing to understand, regardless of the industry, regardless of the individual, regardless of the situation, whether you're a business leader, whether you're an educational leader, student, whatever, the greatest wealth is health. So if you are strong and sustained and feel supported in your mental, physical health and any other aspects, I think you will come forth as the greatest version of yourself. And so regardless of our positions, I think that's one of the things that we need to consider is how we are impacting and supporting the health of our employees, of our students, our communities, our family and friends. And so that would be just my ending statement. It's just make sure that we're helping to do that.
Oh my goodness, you guys have been such an amazing guest speakers, and I want to say I appreciate your time dearly. I cannot wait to follow up on conversations and to also implement these strategies as I interview for the role of Miss Tennessee, and with high hopes and prayers to be not only Miss Tennessee, but also to go to the next level to Miss America and ultimately win Miss America so that I can continue these conversations. I think that this scholarship competition needs to see a difference. I think they need to see a leader who doesn't mind getting dirty, hands dirty, or having conversations that are uncomfortable. So I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I look forward to further collaborating with you and what you're doing when it comes to leadership, imagination, and purpose, and power, and people. I am so grateful for your time, and I want to make sure you know that. And the Vision and Vibes family is also grateful for your expertise and your information that you shared as well today. So, with that being said, much love, much peace, much wealth to you all, and vibe out.
Thank you, Kay. Appreciate you.